So welcome to the first episode of The Big Interview, a periodic chat show for Irish cricket fans. I'm Craig Easdown and I'm joined today by four special guests. The four gentlemen joining me today are four of Ireland's representatives on the international panel of ICC umpires. I'd like to welcome Mark Hawthorne.
Hello.
Alan Neill. Paul Reynolds.
Hi.
And Roland Black.
Hi.
Welcome, gentlemen. We'll start with Mark. You stood in your first international in 2002, so it's not about when you got into umpiring, but why?
The level of cricket I played at, we didn't get official umpires. So when I was playing cricket, if I wasn't batting, I was normally out umpiring. I always quite enjoyed it. I was on the committee at Cliftonville Cricket Club, and one winter they got a letter from the NCU asking for some people to attend an umpire training course during the winter. The club asked a couple of us to go along, 6 or 7 Tuesday nights, January and February. And I enjoyed the course. The people taking it were very knowledgeable, very helpful, very enthusiastic. After doing the course, I did a few games, official games, out in the middle. And from the beginning, really, I was hooked. I enjoyed it. And I quickly realised I could umpire at a much higher level than I could play at. I just enjoyed it. And that's still the case today.
Which is a good segue. Alan, you've umpired for 13 years now full-time. What keeps you going? What interests you about umpiring?
Every day is a different day. There's no such thing as the same old, same old. Even if you're doing a match between two teams on a Saturday and the same two teams on a Sunday, you can be guaranteed different situations and scenarios that will raise their head. It's always a challenge. It's the best seat in the house. If you have an interest in the sport and are unable to play it perhaps at the very top level now, you can still be part and parcel of the big picture. I've come a long way from the very grassroots right up to the international level, and I've been very fortunate. Things that have been keeping me going is the challenge of working with good umpires, top umpires in the world, the best, and also mixing with the best players in the world, whom before you'd only been sitting watching on TV. So there are plenty of challenges out there, and every opportunity is a new challenge.
Paul, Alan mentions the big picture. So what is the big picture for an umpire? What's a typical season look like for someone like yourself?
It's funny, Craig, in as much as last year it was the first year that we've been on Cricket Island contracts. So last year was a new typical year, if you like, and this year would have been the second one, but obviously it hasn't quite happened as the way we thought. But because we were on full-time summer contracts now, last year we were pretty busy. I don't know, for people who don't remember, that the season started off last year in La Manga. So 3 of us right there for the first of the IP50 matches. And then pretty quickly for the most of May, then there was the Tri-Series in Dublin. So the way international cricket works is that if there's an international T20, all 4 of us are involved. If there's ODIs, 3 of us are involved. So for most of those 3 weeks, I think it was, we were all in hotels in Dublin. 3 weeks might sound nice, and I think from what I remember, we were coming in and out. So some of us were there for a week, and then you might go home for a few days. But luckily, I think I can speak for the others, that we all get along, so we tend to spend a good bit of time together. So that was most of May last year, and that was much... after that point, I didn't do any more internationals in Ireland or even IP games in Ireland. I did a couple of tournaments in Europe, whereas Mark and Alan Rowley did the Zimbabwe series. So most of us spent most of the year doing international cricket, and then IP cricket spread across the rest of the year. And what I guess we didn't do last year that we would have done in the past was a lot of club games. I think I probably only did maybe 5 or 6 club games various weekends when I was available. But that's the big difference now, that most of our time is spent doing international and interprovincial matches. And then on top of all that, then we try and do observations of other up-and-coming umpires. We try and get around the country and look at everybody else. So between the four of us, we were pretty busy last season.
And Rolly, Paul mentions international cricket. You recently stood at the World T20 qualifiers in Dubai and the Under-19 World Cup in South Africa. So what's the difference between, as an umpiring experience, what's the difference between a one-off match here in Dublin or Belfast and a series or a tournament overseas?
I think personally, I would try and prepare for a game in exactly the same way, using routines and processes. So if it's a one-off game or a tournament over a month, any specific game, you're going to try and prepare in exactly the same way. But for me, there's so many challenges when you would go to a tournament that you try and have to overcome and get out of your comfort zone. For example, travel would be one where you're maybe traveling for 24 hours from your home to your final destination. Sleep patterns, straight out of a flight the next day, you're into a workshop with maybe 16 umpires from all over the world, some of them that you've never met before, and you have to bond as a team and sort of get prepared and be ready to step over that line. Sleep was a major issue, and the fact you could have maybe umpired a T20 game in Dubai at 7:30 in the evening, got back to your hotel room at midnight, and maybe struggled to be sleeping by 2 or 3 in the morning because your mind was still very active. In South Africa, over 30 days, we slept in 14 different hotel bedrooms and travelled roughly about 3,000 miles during the course of the tournament, going from venue to venue. Mm-hmm. So there's so many different challenges that you have to try and overcome. In a tournament, you would start off with certain game plans and sort of goals that you want to achieve, but the key thing is that you want to sort of finish your last game with the same momentum and the same sort of concentration and discipline that you've started your first game with. I believe anyone gets a chance to stand in a global tournament, you basically want to try as much as possible to leave a good impression of officiating in Ireland and bring things back that you've learned to pass on to your colleagues around the country.
We'll move into the quickfire round now. So the first question, what year did you start umpiring?
2005.
1995.
2009.
2008.
What's your favourite Irish ground to umpire at?
Mine definitely would be Downpatrick.
I started watching senior cricket at Craigie in Belfast, so I'm going to say Craigie in Belfast.
Anywhere with a big crowd. So Malahide is great for a big international crowd. Merry and Pembroke last year, the league final down here. Big crowd makes everywhere a great game.
For me, it has to be the Hills. Has that sort of wow factor when you walk in the front gate.
What match would you rather umpire at? A World Cup final or a deciding Ashes test?
I don't know why, but I think a World Cup final would be the icing on the cake for me.
It'll be the deciding Ashes test for me.
Yeah, I think I'd go the World Cup final. I think.
World Cup final for me as well.
What non-Irish ground have you seen a match at that you would like to umpire at one day?
Any of the top Australian grounds would be fantastic. As Paul said earlier, with a full crowd there and good weather, it'll be fantastic to do so.
I've seen a couple of test matches at the Oval, and I would really want to umpire a match at the Oval.
I'd probably go for Lords, even Ireland's ODI there, whatever that was 2 years ago. Not that we'd had a chance to umpire that game, but that'd been pretty good. I do Lords.
I'd have to agree with Paul. Lords, for me, the home of cricket, would be something special.
Okay, we're going to move to a couple of scenarios now and watch a few videos. And we're going to get each of you just to either analyse or give a bit of commentary, a bit of an insight into what the umpire or the third umpire in each scenario is looking at, is doing, is thinking about, or how they'd handle this situation. So the first one we're going to look at is one that's close to a lot of Irish people's heart from January this year. And that's the Mark Adair run out. And I'm going to go to Rolly.
Is he gone? Is he gone? That was brilliant fielding. We'll go upstairs.
Roll forward, roll forward, roll forward. Yes. Yeah.
Rolly, tell us about what the third umpire in this situation is looking for.
Well, the on-field umpire on the day, Richard Illingworth, would have basically come upstairs and on that day he would have given indication that he wasn't sure that the wicket was broken correctly. So right from the off, he would have been given the TV umpire the heads up about the wicket being broken fairly. I have to say, this is a fairly difficult decision to make. It's when you're in the box, the hairs on your back of your neck would be definitely rising. It's a game of millimeters. It's a game of very, very fine lines. As we can see from this image, basically they're trying to clarify if the ball is in the hand when the ball actually touches the stumps and if the wicket has been broken fairly.
And so he's gone for not out in the big screen?
Yeah. My opinion, personally, I believe on the day the not out decision was definitely correct. To be given that decision out, you would need conclusive and clear evidence that either the ball was in the hand or the ball actually broke the wicket. Now, for the wicket to be broken correctly, both ends of the bail have to be completely removed from the groove. So I would have no hesitation in saying that the TV umpire got that decision correct.
Fantastic. Now, the second scenario we're going to look at is cricket can get a bit heated at times on the field. Tension occurs, and an umpire can quite often be right in the middle of the action. So we're going to look at one of the most famous episodes from the early 80s.
Again full and again flicked away on the leg side. Hello, hello. My goodness. Lily really did ask for that, and that's really very silly. Javed Miandad, hello. My goodness. Well, this is absolutely disgraceful. It really is absolutely stupid.
And you can see he there aiming a kick at Javed Miandad. And
Goodness, so kicking, bat raised. Paul, how would you deal with this situation, and what is the umpire thinking in this situation?
The big thing that's changed from when this happened is there was no Players' Code of Conduct back in the early 80s. So anything you see like that from sort of 30, 40 years ago, it was purely the umpire having to talk with players. In a modern game, players and officials know exactly what's allowed and what isn't. So in some respects, our life now is much easier. It's probably the reason you don't see this kind of thing anymore, or not much. Attacking another player is a pretty straight level 4 offence with multiple match bans. In terms of actually dealing with the situation, in fact, Tony Crafter in this deals with it very well. I mean, the thought of having to jump between two fighting players isn't really something that I think we'd have to consider too much. But it's all about preparation. So if it was, say, a multi-day match, or if it was a tournament, and there'd already been issues of a flare-up between players, or players were causing trouble, that might be something we had talked about before a match or before that day's match, and you might be ready for something to happen. And then specifically with this example, when me and Dad and Lily first come together and Lily goes to kick him, hopefully you might spot that and be able to get involved, but get involved in a very quiet way before it then got out of control. So when Lily first kicks me and Dad, you might be able to say, lads, come on, we don't want to see any of that, please. Before they then got and started raising bats at each other and kicking each other more. So in the end, in that instance, Tony Crafter does it quite well by literally standing between them and stopping them getting there. But I don't think you'd see that anymore, and hopefully none of us will ever be in that situation.
Now, Alan, a lot of people are watching The Test on Amazon Prime. So ball tampering and fiddling with the ball is quite topical at the moment. So we're going to look at a few instances of ball tampering over the years and get you to comment on that.
30, the drama began to unfold as the umpires, after a routine inspection of the ball, decided its condition had been unfairly altered by the fielding side.
And it's all over this, a cricket ball. Cameron Bancroft was caught tampering with the ball. He got yellow sandpaper and used it to scuff one side.
So, Alan, ball tampering is obviously an offence under the laws of cricket. Can you talk us a bit through about, from an umpire's perspective, what you're looking for and how you deal with situations where you suspect it's happening?
Yeah, it's something that's crept into the game quite a lot recently. Obviously, it's been very highlighted with the sandpaper gate in 18, but the bottom line is that it is present in all forms of the game. But diligent umpires, we talk about that even before we go out onto the field of play. And the change rooms, we're sitting go through a whole lot of regulations and things that we'd be looking out for. And that would be one of the things that we'd be keeping a very close eye on, the condition of the ball. The last thing we want is for it to be unfairly changed in any way. Umpires nowadays are constantly looking at and assessing the condition of the ball. A lot of the time when the ball's hit out of the ground, it may make contact with a hard surface or advertising hoardings or even wooden structures. When that ball comes back in, we all now have a good look at the ball to see if there's any damage has occurred to the ball. If that's the case, we make a note of it. We both of us have a look at it and say, yeah, okay, we understand that has occurred due to the metal stanchions being hit with the ball. I think the thing to do, and we would agree with this as a team, we would make regular checks, but make irregular checks, but make them obvious ones, so that there's no set every 5 overs or every 10 overs. At the fall of a wicket, we get the ball, we take control of the ball, and that's an opportunity to have a good look at the ball there. Some of the examples you've shown there, there's lots of different ways of trying to make the condition of the ball unfair. And we are aware of those ways of doing that. But when that happens, we then have to step in and make sure that the fielding side and the batting side are aware of the fact that we are now aware that something is going on untoward. Once we get a whiff of something like that, we then do take action as a team on field. But if it doesn't happen, if the situation occurs that it still continues, then we have to go down the official route, which is a matter of changing the ball, awarding penalty runs, and even if it does reoccur later on, those same sanctions are imposed, plus the removal of the bowler. And whenever it is located, then there are very strong sanctions, and it is a reporting offence at the end of all. The first one as well, and the second time it happens. So there is strong sanctions available. It's a situation that's cropped up in the game more and more, and the methods of doing it are becoming more and more, should I say, sneaky. But at the top level, with so many cameras being involved, it's very difficult for players to get away with anything like that. Slightly lower down, with less cameras involved, they will try. But again, that's where I think the team of umpires have to be even more vigilant.
Okay, thank you for that. That's fascinating. And now the last one we're going to look at is another one which is controversial at times. That's chucking or throwing. When an umpire calls a player for throwing, we're going to look at quite an extreme example at the moment, but one which is very famous.
Now, he's done it again. I just can't see how umpire Hare can be calling no ball here. His back foot is in a perfectly legitimate position. It's the one before. That's the back foot, and for me, that is perfectly legitimate. As I say, I can't find... Well, this has appeared from nowhere. This guy's bowled a lot of overs in Australia, and all of a sudden, from nowhere, he's now being called for bowling no balls.
Well, I hope he's not calling him for throwing.
Mark, tell us about this.
Okay, Craig. Well, I mean, this particular incident happened, it's over 20 years ago. So the game has moved on and evolved quite a bit since then in how to deal with suspect bowling actions. The ICC have put in place protocols for suspect bowling actions, and a couple of the colleagues today have mentioned preparation. And so if you're at a tournament or you're doing an international match, part of your preparation would be to be aware of the protocols for dealing with a suspect bowling action. The protocol at the moment is umpires are encouraged to make a note of suspect actions and to report them to the match referee after the match. There's an ICC suspect bowling action report form, and with the extensive technology we've got nowadays, there can be video analysis, computer analysis. A verdict can be reached on whether the action is fair or not. So the umpire is not actually making the decision whether it's a fair delivery or not. I've been at 2 under-19 World Cups, and I know that every bowler at those World Cups is videoed. The videos are studied, so they try to pick up suspect actions before players reach senior international cricket. I mean, Murley was no balled by Darrell Hare there, but of course when Murley was tested, he was cleared. So the danger of an umpire calling no ball for a suspect bowling action, the tests may come back that the bowler's action is fair within the requirements of the law. But the follow-up to understanding the law is what you do if you suspect somebody has a suspect bowling action. Now, whether as umpires we agree or disagree with the result of the investigation is not really relevant. Our role as umpires has to be quite clear. We report it and leave it to others to make the final decision.
That's great. Now we're going to move on to debates or discussions in the game relating to umpiring and umpiring decisions. I'm going to start with Paul. Third umpire is quite often cited as the eye in the sky. Have they encroached too much on on-field umpires' responsibilities, or do you support them doing more in the game?
Because we fulfill all those roles, because we also, I mean, most of our training, especially off-season, is around third umpiring. So although you might see a debate in the media or something saying, you know, is a third umpire or on-field umpires having stuff taken away from them? In our minds, I guess it doesn't make a whole lot of difference, because it just means as a third umpire, you're doing more work or different work or more skills to learn. It always it puts umpires in a difficult position. The on-field umpires in a difficult position if cameras show something that's going wrong, and if the third umpire can't then help them out in any way, it can put the umpires on field in a difficult light. So personally, I feel that any way that technology can help the on-field umpires is good. And if that means the third umpire is doing more and more stuff, that's better. But it's also important to think that we're talking about such a tiny amount of world cricket that has a third umpire who is able to do these things. So it's not even, you know, of the 130 or 40 countries playing cricket in the world, it's only maybe the top dozen who would have a third umpire with all with DRS and everything that brings, and it's not even every single match at that top level that has every single form of analysis that third umpire can use. And it's all very well on-field umpires maybe not having to look at to take a new example, not having to look at the front foot no balls. But as soon as that on-field umpire has to go back to a different game, he's going to have to start doing it again. So really, it helps at the very, very top of the game, but it's only a very small number of matches where third umpires can do this. So I don't think on-field umpires are going to be going anywhere soon anyway.
Fantastic. Mark, neutral umpires is certainly an evolution of the game that came in, a lot of people saw as a necessity. Do you think neutral umpires are still required in the modern game, or should we go further and have it in all formats?
Yeah, it's a good discussion point, Craig. I know Michael Atherton wrote an article in the Times yesterday arguing for just neutral umpires in matches. You know, is its time up because of DRS and so on and technology? Yeah, I can see arguments for and against. I think you have to remember there are 12 umpires on the elite panel. So let's say India come to England, play test matches. England has 4 umpires on the elite panel. So they get umpire all those matches, 2 on field, TV umpire, 4th umpire. India host England in India. India has no umpires on the elite panel. So I can see a potential for some disgruntled people, fairly or unfairly, and perception's everything. To be fair, the T20 international matches can be umpired by 4 umpires from the host country. So when Ireland played India at Malahide, the 2 on-field umpires, the television umpire and the 4th umpire were all from Ireland. For ODI matches, there's 1 ICC appointed umpire and 1 home umpire. For test matches, the ICC system has to have umpires from countries that are not involved in playing the match. I'm old enough to remember the various rows in every country in the world with teams complaining about hometown decisions in test matches. Very unsavoury at times. And every country was accused by teams of home umpires favouring the home team. So in recent years, there has been none of that. So I would tend to feel that the system as it is at the minute is working quite well. And I'd be tempted just to leave it as it is.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Alan, you can think of, say, the last Ball Ashes match, the World Cup final, a tight T20. How do you as an umpire stay aloof of the game, and how do you not get swept up in the circumstances of what's going on around you?
First of all, it's a fantastic situation or scenario to be in. First of all, because we would preach that pressure is a privilege. But yes, to stay aloof and to remain focused on your own particular role would be my key issue there. Myself and my colleague at the fall of a wicket, we would talk and we would say, or bring our A star or A double star game out for the last 10 overs, 5 overs, the case may be. It's going to be very intense. So let's make sure we focus on all the roles that we've done well up to now, because it only takes one slip up or lack of concentration and you'll be remembered for that, and the rest of the day you'll be forgotten about. Make sure we're in constant contact with our third umpire as well, knowing they require 12 off 4 or 12 off 5. As long as we know, so we can pass the correct information to the people in the middle. But keeping away from the action is a difficult thing to do. But I think that comes with experience. And you stay within your own little self, your own little world. Whenever the bowler comes in, your routine automatically clicks in. You forget about what the situation or scenario or the big picture is. So you hear him coming in, you check the front foot, you look at the business end, and you deal with it from there. So, we have to stay away from the big picture. Constant contact with your colleague. You're going to do better as a team than you are individualistic. The bottom line is something is going to happen that will change the outcome of the game. And you want to be aware that it could happen the next ball at your end. The physical effort that you put in is a lot, but the mental effort that you put yourself under has to be 110%.
Fantastic, great insight. And lastly, Rolly, do good umpires have to be good players? So does it help having been a good player at a decent level, or does it not matter these days as an umpire?
In my opinion, good umpires don't necessarily have to be good players. It may help, but it's not a be all and end all. If you look at someone like Simon Teufel, who for a number of years was voted the best umpire in the world by the ICC, he never played at the really, really top level. So what I would say is it can help to have played at a decent level. If you think of things like gaining respect from players, you may as an umpire gain respect from players quicker if you have sort of played at a top level, and they might accept you a little easier. When it gets further into your career and you're maybe umpiring in front of a full stadium, or you're umpiring key moments in a game, then being able to cope with that pressure, if you've been a player playing at the top level, it may help. But I don't believe it's the be all and end all. It's not a black and white scenario, because every individual is different, and it's not until you step across that line or that rope and you start to learn your trade as an umpire do you really start to earn your stripes, because there's nothing like experience to basically help you improve and sort of develop. So my answer to that, it's not a necessity, but it can help depending on the individual.
Last round of questions, just about really umpiring in Ireland and potentially getting into umpiring if people are interested. Paul, we'll start with you. So how do people get into umpiring in Ireland?
So each of the provincial unions has their own umpires association. So get in touch with them. Get in touch with your provincial union, and they'll be able to put you in touch. There's lots of courses going on across the season. Many of the courses are now online. I know Alan and Mark have been doing lots of Zoom courses as well over the last few months. So it's not even a case these days that you have to attend, lectures or do exams. And there's lots of great opportunities for everybody now within the game. So get in touch with your local provincial union or provincial umpiring and scoring association and get going.
Alan, if you want to get into umpiring, how well do you have to know the MCC Laws of Cricket booklet? Do you have to know it off by heart, or?
I don't think I could name anybody who knows that little blue book off by heart. The four of us are still learning as every game occurs. Certainly, absolutely not. No. The more you know, the stronger the foundation you're starting with, and the more confidence you'll have going out into the field. Yes. There's one thing knowing it, and there's another thing understanding it. I think nowadays understanding it, and Mark touched upon earlier, the experience of going out and getting involved, rolling your sleeves up and getting involved in it certainly is there. Yeah, it's not 100%. The more you know, the better off you're going to be. And as I say, after every match, lots of times we'll come back home, lift the blue book, open it up and check something or look at another aspect of the laws of the game. So it's an ongoing thing. It's a lifeline for an umpire at any stage of their development.
That's encouraging to know. And Mark, Alan talks about experience. So the experience has led you to join the International ICC panel. What's that meant for your umpiring career?
Once you get on to the ICC International Umpires panel, it just gives you more opportunities. You'll have opportunities to umpire at tournaments around the world, under 19 World Cups. I've been to a Women's World Cup in India. qualifying tournaments. And of course, as Ireland have progressed through the ranks in recent years, there are a lot more ODIs, T20s. And of course, we had a test match in Ireland that Alan and I were involved with. So being on that ICC international panel just gives you opportunities. And as Rolly touched on earlier, when you get those opportunities, you do your best, take them, make a good impression, and hope you'll get further opportunities.
Fantastic. And just to finish off, Rolly, you're at a lift, you press the down button, you hop in the lift and you're with one other person. You've got 30 seconds to convince them to become an umpire. What do you say?
Simple for me. It's the best seat in the house to watch someone play that match-winning innings or bowl that devastating spell. There's no better place. It's allowed me personally to stay involved in the game at a far higher level than I was ever good enough to play at. I've met so many brilliant people and made so many good friends over my umpiring career. As Mark touched on, with Ireland becoming a full member and entering the Future Tours programme, there are amazing opportunities for both men and women to get into officiating and basically progress. Like where it's going to be in the next 10 years, who knows? But it's just amazing opportunities. And I think it's important as people come towards the end of their playing careers to give something back to the game, because it's our responsibility to pass it on to the next generation.
A fantastic roundup there of umpiring, what it's like to umpire in Ireland, some of the challenges of umpiring and some of the opportunities. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Rolly.
Cheers, Craig.
And thank you for watching, and we hope to be back soon. Thank you all.